Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it is time for the Monday Q&A. So let's get this going. First question. In your recent Obesity is a Choice video, you mentioned that you do an hour of cardio per day. Am I correct in assuming that this is LISS cardio? Would you recommend LISS over HIIT-type cardio for strength athletes, primarily on the basis of allowing adequate recovery for resistance training sessions? Yes, this is obviously LISS, and in fact it is biologically impossible to do an hour of HIIT. I'm going to say if you're doing true HIIT, your upper threshold is going to be 20-25 minutes tops. If you can hit like 30 minutes or more, it's more medium intensity cardio. It is not HIIT cardio. I don't care what people say, it doesn't work that way. You're holding back big time. You're not doing maximum intensity cardio if you can sustain it for long. I recommend LISS because it does increase endurance, it does increase work capacity, it burns through calories, it has a lot of the benefits that you would want from cardio, but it doesn't use the same energy systems that your weightlifting does. Higher intensity cardio reduces the frequency and volume at which you can squat and do other lower body movements, and so accordingly it will impede your capacity to build strength, particularly in the lower body. So I don't think it should be used for the strength athlete unless they have sport-specific reasons for wanting to do it, and very specific applications for it. And the sport-specific applications of that are far, far too many for me to cover here. They could take someone an hour or 2 hours to cover all of those, maybe more, with all the different sports that are out there. I don't personally need any for my goals, so I don't do it. I just do LISS. All right, next question. Is it true that a muscle needs to be hit 2 to 3 times a week for ideal protein synthesis to occur? And if so, does that mean every body part should be trained 2 to 3 times a week, right? Yes, that is correct. I generally recommend 3 if you're drug-free, not just 2. I know a lot of people recommend 2, but I'm going to say only do that if you have a large amount of overlap. Meaning when you start doing things like squatting or deadlifting every single session and doing each one twice and then counting it, then you get away with it and stuff. But otherwise, I don't recommend going even the 2 for most people, and I know a lot of popular programs do it. I just don't think from a muscle protein synthesis perspective it is ideal, and I think if you're struggling with recovery to do your lifts 3 times a week, your daily volume is probably too high, or you're programming something incorrectly. Very, very few drug-free lifters need to be doing lifts less than 3 times a week, or at least body parts. It depends on what your goals are, whether it's just purely hypertrophy or sports performance, but I would like to see most athletes squatting 3 times a week, unless their sport-specific training really interferes with that. But all in all, yeah, if you're drug-free, you need the higher frequency. The reason you see guys get away with the much lower frequency is because they tend to be very advanced, their workloads tend to be very, very high, and they're on a lot of drugs. And when you get to a certain threshold purely for hypertrophy purposes, when people get on enough drugs, the frequency at which they train doesn't seem to affect their hypertrophy, so they don't generally bother training a body part directly more than once a week oftentimes. And that's how that system evolved. It just didn't seem to cause any further growth for them because the drugs, all the drug cocktails, keep their muscle protein synthesis elevated for very, very long periods of time. And just in general, even when they don't train. All right, next question. Would your peptide stack benefit those who are natty, or is it more meant for those on gear? Now, some of the people are going to go, oh, well, you can't say that's natty because those are drugs. Oh, there are lots of drugs that are allowed in natural bodybuilding feds. The term natty only applies to bodybuilding. And I have court documents from lawyers from one of the most famous natural bodybuilders, and it's signed by the High Court of the UK, specifically stating that natural bodybuilding is clearly defined. What is and isn't allowed is clearly defined by the rules of the federations, and those bodybuilding federations define the definition of natural. So I have that in legal documents, people, so I feel confident in saying that if you are natural or not is completely determined by what drugs are or are not on the list in natural bodybuilding feds, and a lot of these peptides are not banned, and they're not even testable. You can't even test for them anyways. So they are natty. Now, that being said, a lot of these peptides have a synergistic effect with anabolics. Some do, some don't. And they're legal in most countries. There's some exceptions, but as I said in the other video, these things are legal to buy and possess in tons of countries, the US, Canada, UK. The majority of where my subscriber base is. And they do have effects that are beneficial. They're not going to give you the same benefits you're going to get from anabolics. Let's just be honest here. But what they do, a lot of them have the potential for speeding up recovery, speeding up injury recovery in soft tissue, speeding up connective tissue recovery, strengthening connective tissue, increasing satellite cell proliferation. And that's the big one you're looking for muscle growth in the long term. A lot of these will potentially increase satellite cell proliferation while helping you lose body fat at a faster rate, increasing connective tissue strength. Those things really have big benefits to naturals. In fact, they would give naturals a very, very big edge. Even though in the short term, you may not gain any noticeable muscle mass from these sort of things, other than maybe site growth from something like mechanical growth factor. But when you look at them from the long-term perspective, the injury prevention perspective, and the stronger connective tissue will allow you to get stronger in strength phases more quickly without risking injury, without setbacks from connective tissue injury, and sometimes connective tissue can limit strength. It may allow for faster progressive overload in the long run, and those extra satellite cell proliferation might over time give you more muscle cells to work with, which again, over the course of a year or two, will result in additional muscle size. But you're not going to get that direct big hypertrophy benefit that anabolics are going to give you. All right, guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.